Hi friends, welcome to Officers IAS Academy. I am Rangarajan, the Associate Director of the Academy, and this video is aimed primarily for those candidates who are likely to appear for the personality test of the UPSC, which will be conducted somewhere during January to March of 2020. Many of you would have written your mains and waiting with bated breath as to what is going to happen. Feel confident. If you have done well, definitely you will get an interview call, you will get a personality test call, and it is always better to start early, right? It's only the early birds which catch the prey. So it's important that you start off early. I mean, you have already written your exam, so it is beyond your control now. So don't bother about it. Hope for the best result in the mains. And when you are preparing for the interview, there are so many things, right? There are so many inputs which people give. There are toppers of previous years who come up with their own versions. There are various people who come up with their own ideas. But I think we should not overcomplicate the personality test process. It's a simple assessment of your personality. It's not a test of your knowledge. That's the first thing that you need to have in mind. But having said that, can you just be ignorant about what is happening around you? If you look at even the UPSC notification, it says it's a purposive conversation to find out the interest and the suitability of the candidate for a career in the civil services, and a person is expected to know about the general happenings around him as any normal well-informed citizen would be aware of. It is not a test of your knowledge, which is already tested in the mains, but having said that, you cannot be ignorant. But the key to the interview process, the personality test process, is how do you structure your answer which brings out your personality. Now you may ask me, sir, how does an answer bring a personality out of me? It does. Any question which is asked by the interview board, they want to check whether you are not panicking. If you don't know, you politely say, sir, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of it. Then they will move on to the next question. And once you know something, whether you are able to process the data that is there in your mind and give it in a constructive manner, right? So it should be a balanced answer, but having said that, if they ask you for an opinion, you should give your opinion. You cannot say that, sir, I don't have an opinion, because that is also a reflection of your personality, that you can't take a decision or you can't take a stand and justify it. So you should give it. But having said that, you should not take extreme positions. You should not be extremely in favor of the government about a decision because you want to join the government service, or you cannot behave like an opposition party and castigate the government for any of the decisions that it has taken. You remember, you are wanting to join the government service, so you cannot come across as anti-establishment, definitely not. But having said that, you have still not joined the government service, so don't speak like a government spokesperson as well. Speak your mind. Speak in a very, very balanced manner and let the answer bring out the personality in you. That yes, if you are put in a situation and asked to comment on something, you have reasonable idea about what is the subject. You are not ignorant because it is happening in the present day world, in the current affairs, and you do have some important points for forming an opinion. You are also aware of the other side or the counter argument for that opinion. But having said that, in the overall scheme of things, you are in favor of a particular viewpoint. Again, guys, very important, you should remember. If they ask you a question as to what is your opinion, if the same thing is asked in the mains, critically analyze, you will have to write all the points, because you are not sitting in front of the examiner and explaining your answer to him. Whatever you have written is what the examiner is going to correct. So if there are 5 points which you need to write for a particular statement that is given, and 4 or 5 points which you need to write against that particular statement that is given, which is what is critically evaluate mean, and finally you need to conclude with your opinion in the conclusion section. Instead of that, if you just write 2 points for and 2 points against, the chances of you getting lesser marks becomes a reality. Because if you have written 5 points each, which are all important, maybe you would have got, let's say, 10 out of 15 marks. But because you have written only 2 points, you will end up getting maybe only 3 or 4 marks. That is the problem with the mains. But in the interview, Don't think that, oh, I need to say 4 points for and 4 points against if I am asked to critically evaluate. No. Even if you take the two most or even the one most important point for a particular thing and one counterpoint and say it with conviction and say that, sir, there are also other points, but in the balance of things, this is what my opinion is, then you will definitely score well. So let's take an example of this WhatsApp controversy which is happening, right? So there is some kind of statement by WhatsApp saying that there is a spyware, as it is called, named Pegasus, yeah, which is an Israeli-based company which has snooped, which means it has spied over some of the private data stored in the cell phones. So how that spyware operates, most of you may be aware, it comes as a link. Once you click in it, the spyware gets automatically installed without you not even being aware of it. And then that spyware will have access to all the personal data, contacts, even to your messaging services like WhatsApp, voice calls made out of that, camera, so on and so forth. So now, in this context, what is your opinion about the data security which is there in the country? If that is asked in the interview, and it's quite possible that, even when you're going for the interview during January, February, the story would have only developed further. But I'm just giving you it as an example. So you need to bring out the fact that you are aware that right to privacy is a fundamental right as declared by the Supreme Court, and you are wanting to join the civil service whose primary job is to uphold the Constitution. Right? You work for the Constitution of India if you are in government service, not for the government of the day. So at any cost, you should not put any constitutional value or principle below the need of the government of the day. That is unacceptable, right? But having said that, you say that, sir, right to privacy is a non-negotiable fundamental right as declared by the Supreme Court. But having said that, you need to have certain surveillance measures. In this instant case, it is a wrongful spyware, or it is a hack which has happened, which is definitely not acceptable, and the government should take strict measures. But even if the government has to spy in national interest, there has to be reasonable procedures, transparent procedures which has to be put in place, which needs to be followed by the government. It has to be in utmost national importance that the privacy of an individual can be breached, and that too after proper checks and safeguards that are available. And in this regard, you can conclude by saying that the data protection bill, which is likely to be tabled in the winter session, and by the time you go to the interview, maybe it would have even been passed. If it has been passed, then you need to review as to what is the final act that is passed. But if it is still a bill under consideration, you can conclude by saying that the draft data protection bill has adequate safeguards, it should be put to use in a proper manner, and while the fundamental right, while the interest of the government or the state to protect its citizens is important and national interest is important, it should be subject to adequate safeguards and transparent measures, and at no point of time should the fundamental right to privacy of a citizen be wrongfully breached. So I'm just giving you an example. I mean, I did not give an answer. I'm just telling you the broad perspectives which you have to bring. But you can practice it on your own. Sit in front of the camera, ask yourself a question, try and talk in front of the camera and try and create answers. That may help you in refining your answers. But more importantly, again I repeat, it doesn't matter whether you have brought 3 points for and 3 points against. That is what is your botheration in your mains examination. The most important point from one point of view, which is the fundamental right to privacy here. The other important point from an other perspective, which is national interest. And how do you balance it? By bringing a carefully drafted Data Protection Act. So I hope you got the sense as to how to approach the personality test. As I told you, the answer should reflect your personality, that you are a very rational person who does not jump to conclusions, who's able to see both the sides of a coin, But at the end of the day, you are someone who are aspiring to be a civil servant, so you will ensure that government interest is paramount, but at the same time, the constitutional values are definitely protected. So I hope you found this useful. So please do join our interview module as well, and you will have one-on-one feedback sessions, DAF analysis, mock interviews, all that, which will be offered at the Officers IAS Academy. So we look forward to having you in this program, and good luck. Wish you all the best. We will see with more videos in the future. Thank you.